They didn't ask for permission, not with words at least. But the moment unfolded the way certain moments do, when everyone involved already understands the weight of what's about to happen. Because one of them stepped closer behind me and I became aware of his presence through warmth and proximity rather than touch, while the other remained in front of me, his gaze steady and searching, not demanding anything yet, not offering escape either. And the small washing room around us felt suddenly narrower, dimly lit by a weak flickering bulb, and filled with the familiar hum of the dryer, the scent of clean laundry and rain-soaked air mixing into something intimate and unsettling. And I remember thinking how strange it was that a place so ordinary, a room meant for chores and routine, could hold so much unspoken tension. Because I didn't move away, didn't speak, didn't pretend not to notice the closeness. Instead, I leaned back slightly, letting the steady warmth of the machine ground me, while the space between the three of us filled with everything I had buried for years, all the things I told myself I no longer needed, all the wants I had folded neatly away alongside pressed shirts and towels. Convincing myself I had forgotten desire entirely, when the truth was I had only hidden it under layers of responsibility and silence. Every quiet dinner where no one asked how I felt, every night I stayed busy just to avoid the emptiness upstairs. And this wasn't something I had planned or fantasized about. It wasn't a rule I had set out to break. It felt instead like stumbling upon a forgotten part of myself and refusing, just once, to look away, because I am 38 years old. A wife of 12 years, the woman who remembers dates and routines and preferences, the one who keeps everything running smoothly. And yet no one had truly seen me in a long time, not in the way these two men did, not with that quiet awareness that made me feel solid again, real again. One of them, Kalb, my husband's cousin, kind and familiar and worn by his own disappointments. The other, Jonah, a longtime friend with a presence that asked questions without speaking. And they had both started appearing more often, at first by chance and then by habit, until their visits filled spaces my husband no longer noticed were empty. And on the night the storm cut the power and left the house suspended in darkness, my husband stranded away on another delayed trip. It felt almost inevitable that they would be there, soaked from the rain, carrying concern and practicality and something else neither of us named. And standing there in my robe with towels in my hands, I remember how time slowed, how the room felt charged. How nothing obvious happened, and yet everything changed. Because sometimes the most dangerous moments are the quiet ones, the ones where no one rushes or grabs or speaks too loudly, the ones where you simply stop pretending, and when the sound outside shifted and reality threatened to return, we scattered back into our roles without a word, the world snapping into place so easily it was terrifying. And the next morning looked exactly like every other breakfast and routine and the soft tumble of laundry, except I felt altered, like I had woken from a long sleep, carrying a warmth that wasn't romantic or even joyful so much as deeply human, a reminder that I was still capable of feeling. And that feeling didn't disappear as days passed. It followed me quietly, in the way Jonah lingered when handing me something forgotten, in the way Calb stayed just a little longer, fixing things that didn't urgently need fixing, never crossing a line, never forcing anything, just existing close enough to remind me I wasn't invisible, and I told myself it was harmless. That noticing and being noticed wasn't the same as doing something wrong, but inside I was changing in small, almost invisible ways, brushing my hair more carefully, pausing when I heard a car outside, choosing softness where I once chose practicality, and the tension grew not through action but through restraint, through moments where hands brushed accidentally, where silence stretched too long, where glances carried meaning no one dared to name, until another storm threatened and they showed up again, prepared and concerned and uninvited in the way only people who feel connected can be. And when the power went out and the house fell into shadow, the quiet felt heavier than before, and when Calb asked softly if we wanted them to leave, the question itself carried the truth we'd all been avoiding. And my silence was an answer even I didn't fully understand at the time. Because what followed wasn't loud or graphic or rushed. It was careful and restrained and rooted in emotion rather than impulse. In the shared understanding that this was about being seen, about comfort and closeness and choosing for one suspended night not to disappear into duty. And when morning came and the storm passed, the ordinary world returned without judgment. Sunlight filtering in as if nothing had happened. But I knew I wasn't the same, because once you remember how it feels to exist fully, it's impossible to forget, and the days that followed were marked not by drama, but by absence. By the way Jonah avoided my eyes, by the way Calb kept his distance. By the jacket left behind that carried too many memories. By the way my husband came home with concern and affection that felt genuine yet incomplete, and I slipped back into my role seamlessly because I had practiced it for years, except now the silence inside the house felt louder, the routines sharper, the loneliness more defined, and when I caught them speaking quietly together one afternoon, the understanding between them unmistakable, it became clear that nothing had truly ended. It had only gone underground. Living in glances and pauses and the heavy knowledge of what had been shared. And when my husband unknowingly held proof of that night in his hands and set it aside without suspicion, I realized how fragile my control really was, how close everything hovered to the surface. And now I live in that in-between space where every knock at the door tightens something in my chest, where I don't know whether I hope for distance or return, because I didn't set out to want what I wanted. I only stopped denying it for a moment, and that moment changed the way I see myself forever. Because when you go too long without being seen, sometimes the smallest act of recognition can feel like salvation. And even if it came from the wrong place at the wrong time, but for one night, in a quiet room filled with shadows and unspoken truths, I didn't feel invisible anymore.